You don't hear the moment your life breaks. Not like glass, not clean. It's quieter, almost polite. A soft internal click, the kind you hear before a door locks on the wrong side of you. For me, that sound came on a night stitched from winter air, roasted chicken, and betrayal. But the story doesn't begin there. It begins the day I walked into a mezzanine hallway and met a man who would one day press my face into freezing concrete and call it justice. The elevator had dropped me onto the wrong floor of a building my family owned, a place built on legacy, deals, and numbers big enough to drown most people. I was young, 23. I had on a beige silk blouse, a black business suit with impractical heels. And then I saw him, Jason Hart, sleeves rolled, toner on his hands, tie crooked like he'd run out of energy halfway through pretending he had it all together. He looked up as if my arrival was the punchline of some private joke. "The copier's winning," he said. "But I'll rally." I laughed, an involuntary, foolish sound that would echo in places I never expected. A courtroom, a stairwell, a hospital. If I'd walked away in that moment, I'd have saved myself 9 years of unraveling. But I didn't. That's how these stories go, isn't it? The monster never looks like a monster at first. 18 months later, we married in a courthouse with lighting so bad even happiness looked hungover. My grandfather was not happy about the marriage. He didn't attend. He sent Marcus Rowe, a Vale family loyalist, strategist, fixer, a man who spoke in warnings disguised as courtesy. Marcus handed me a letter on thick stationery. "You may leave the table, Nora, but you do not leave the blood." A stipend, a future deadline, a phone number to call if you ever hit bottom. I tucked the number into my wallet like a curse. I swore I'd never use it. Our life in Chicago was cramped, imperfect, and, I thought, ours. Our first apartment was a third-floor walk-up in Chicago's River West, peeling paint, thin walls, and a view of a brick alley. I loved it. We lived on what I believed was a $5,000 monthly trust stipend from my parents and Jason's income. $5,000 isn't much in this city, he'd say, shaking his head with a rueful smile. But we'll make it stretch. I'll take a minimal salary for the next few years, reinvest in the firm, and someday we'll laugh about clipping coupons. He made minimal salary sound noble, heroic even. We'll stretch it. We're a team. The truth was simpler. He spent my money I didn't know the real amount of, to build a boutique urban consulting firm that struggled every single year of our marriage. And I believed we were fighting together. Love is blind, they say. But loyalty? Loyalty is blind, deaf, and willingly stupid. Abuse doesn't start with a slap. It starts with a story. You're better without those friends. Your family wants to control you. You don't need them. No one understands us like we do. No one needs to know everything. Little isolations posed as intimacy, little doubts disguised as concern, little insults embedded in affection. Lorna, his mother, fed me venom wrapped in politeness. Chloe, his sister, live-streamed my life like a punchline. And Jason, he built a cage so gently I thanked him for it. We tried for a baby in year 3, we tried for 4 years. During those years I became pregnant and then miscarried. I was 28 at the time and the miscarriage broke something in me. The infertility diagnosis buried the rest. He held my hand through that grief. He kissed my hair. He whispered, "It's us against the world." By the time I turned 32, my phone contacts had dwindled to 3. Jason, a doctor's office, and the trust officer who processed my monthly stipend. The chicken had finished roasting. The house smelled warm, hopeful. 2 things I wouldn't recognize again for months. Jason sent a text at 6:02 p.m. "Board running late. Don't wait up." At 6:18, the door opened. It was Jason. He walked in with the chilling confidence of a man who knew how the night would end. When his hand cracked across my face, the world turned white, then red, then small. The sound, a flat, ugly crack, echoed in the tiny kitchen. The world tilted. My hip slammed into the counter, and I crumpled to the linoleum, vision exploding in static. For a few seconds, all I heard was the ringing in my ears and the hum of the refrigerator. I didn't have time to ask why. I didn't have time to breathe. I blinked up at him, cheek already throbbing, tears springing to my eyes from sheer shock. He demanded I get up. Then his mother, his sister, and his lawyer, Mr. Keene from Carter Finch and Lowe, barged inside our house. Chloe live-streamed the entire humiliation as though I were a character in her channel. Jason spread photos across the table, pictures of me meeting my grandfather's attorney. You cheating on me? No. Planning your escape? No. Sign the papers. Lorna waved my medical record, my most vulnerable truth, like a bloody flag. She can't carry children, Lorna announced. Jason needs someone who can. His eyes were fever bright. You think I don't know how this works? Poor little rich girl, slumming it with the help while she keeps a line open to Daddy's empire? And through it all, Jason watched me crumble with professional detachment, like observing a malfunctioning machine he was ready to discard. Mr. Keene slid a stack of documents across the table. Petition for dissolution of marriage, he said smoothly. Asset transfer addendum. Non-disclosure agreement. Mr. Hart is generously offering to keep this matter quiet if you sign promptly. I reached for the papers with shaking hands. I need to read. Jason grabbed my wrist. His grip was iron. Sign, he said. I had to sign in order to survive. I didn't read the clauses. I didn't see the red tags next to lines that transferred every cent in our joint accounts, trust disbursements, savings, even the beat-up Honda in my name, to Jason. I didn't see the paragraph where I accepted full responsibility for marital breakdown and waived spousal support. The last thing he did was shove me into the freezing stairwell wearing nothing but a nightgown. He wouldn't let me get dressed or get a coat, just throwing me out like yesterday's leftovers. Lorna screamed, "You don't own a coat." Jason bought that coat, with money you gave him, sure, but technically his. You belong with the trash. Chloe was laughing, breathless with the thrill of content. Guys, you are witnessing justice in real time, she told her followers. He shut the door on my body, on my voice, on 9 years of my life. The deadbolt slid with a soft, definitive click, that quiet sound of a life breaking. The concrete was ice, the air sliced like glass. My skin went from burning to numb. A neighbor cracked his door, saw me, and shut it again. Didn't want to get involved. I wasn't a person. I was content. I was gossip. I was crazy Nora who got thrown out. My phone lay shattered at the bottom of the stairs, glowing like some small, stubborn hope. It had been in my hand when he brutally threw me out. I was freezing. My face ached from the slap. My arms were bruising from Jason grabbing me so hard. I decided to survive, to make a stand against this offensive, shattering behavior. I dragged myself toward the phone. It felt like I was moving underwater. I didn't call the Vale emergency number, and not yet. I called 911 instead. Ma'am, are you safe? No. At the hospital, a nurse handed me a card. Harbor House, a shelter. She said, "You're not fine. Let someone help you." I wasn't ready for help, but I was too tired to refuse it. The next morning at the shelter, I met a woman named Elaine, who told me her husband had drowned her business in debt with a lender called Black Summit. Black Summit. The name rattled something inside my memory. I looked at the emergency number in my wallet. For 9 years, I avoided it out of pride. Now I dialed it out of purpose. Not for rescue, for war. Ashwood Hall rose like a stone monument in the snow. I walked inside wearing donated clothes and Harbor House resolve. My grandfather studied me with the practiced coldness of a man who'd negotiated empires. "You survived," he said. Disappointed? He wasn't. He was taking inventory. I laid out everything: Jason, Solace, Black Summit, the trust, the siphoning. "Did you know?" I asked. Yes. He had known. He had watched. He had even manipulated pieces of it. Edward Vale smiled, the sharp, dangerous smile of a man who loves fire as much as legacy. "Then let's begin." "When you left," Edward said, fingers steepled, "you told me you wanted a simple life. No servants, no boardrooms, no empires." He nodded at Marcus. "Show her." Marcus walked over and laid a thin folder on the desk in front of me. Raven 13, Trust, Disbursement summary. The stipend you called small, he said, is $42,000 a month adjusted for performance. It has been for 9 years. The numbers on the page swam. No, I said. Jason said it was 5. He said he didn't want to take more than he needed. We lived in a rented apartment. Jason drove a leased Porsche for 6 of those 9 years. Edward interrupted. His mother's handbags are from designers whose waiting lists I'm on. His sister attended a private art school for 3 semesters and never paid a dime. Who do you think funded all that? My stomach turned. I did, I whispered. You did, Edward confirmed. You weren't the leech. You were the host. Marcus slid over another document, a diagram of entities and lines connecting them like a corporate spiderweb. Including Heart Urban Strategies, Marcus said. We pulled their balance sheet. Insolvent. Deeply. $9 million in debt, most of it held by Black Summit Capital. I stared at the bold red figure. He's not worth $9 million, I said. What did he do? Bad bets on real estate futures, Marcus replied, and loans from a shell lender, Black Summit, whose parent company traces back to... He tapped the tablet. A logo appeared on the wall screen, a stylized sun with sharp mechanical rays. My breath caught. Solace Dynamics, I whispered. Edward's lip curled. Our oldest enemy, he said. We've been blocking their attempts to cannibalize our logistics portfolio for 2 decades. Marcus pointed to a date on the screen. First infusion of capital from Black Summit into Heart Urban Strategies, he said, 9 years and 3 months ago. My mind did the math before he had to say it. The month Jason started interning at Vale, I said. The month we started dating. He didn't fall in love with you by accident, Edward said, voice flat. He was placed. I gripped the arms of the chair, nails digging into leather. Placed, I repeated. Marcus nodded. Solace needed leverage into Vale, he said. They funded Jason's firm, propped him up, made him flashy enough to catch your attention, and useful enough to slip under our radar. You were supposed to be his access point, but you cut yourself off from Ashwood. You refused to bring him to galas. You refused to ask your grandfather for favors. After a while, you were a liability, not an asset. So they called in the debt, I said. And Jason panicked. Marcus finished. He tried to squeeze you for everything he could before his creditors snapped his spine. Divorce papers, asset transfers, anything to keep himself alive. I felt something inside me crack, not the part that loved Jason, because I realized in that moment that the man I'd loved never existed, but was an illusion I'd been clinging to. The next weeks rebuilt me. My grandfather made sure I had every resource I needed. Trent, the ex-military trainer, rebuilt my body. Dr. Elise Warren rebuilt my understanding of the predatory financial world. Sienna Park, a media strategist, rebuilt my public face. Marcus would build the battlefield map. My grandfather rebuilt the machine, but differently this time. Every day we pulled more rod into the light. Black Summit's loan traps, Solace's predation, Carter Finch and Lowe's weaponized divorces. My marriage had been a microcosm of a much bigger system, and we weren't fighting just Jason. We were fighting an ecosystem designed to feed on the vulnerable. I became the executive vice chair at Vale Consortium, and my first act was to return to my old apartment where I had been thrown out of. I drove in the rundown gated complex in a white Bentley. Gary, the security guard, scrambled out of his booth with wide eyes. He handed me the clipboard. I wrote my name in the visitor log. Under reason for visit, I printed asset recovery. Under affiliation, Vale Consortium. I knocked on 3C and Lorna, Jason's mother, peered out. She tried to slam the door. I swung it open with Marcus standing in the shadow with an attorney. The apartment smelled of stale beer and rotting food. Lorna stammered, "Did you come to beg?" "No," I said. "I came to collect the one thing here that still belongs to me." I walked past her into the bedroom Jason and I had shared. In the bottom nightstand drawer, behind a stack of old receipts, was a small wooden box. Inside, wrapped in tissue, lay my mother's wedding band. I slid it onto my pinky finger and closed the box. The weight was tiny. the symbolism was not. Back in the living room, Lorna watched me, arms crossed, knuckles white. "You can't intimidate us," she said. "We have rights." I set a thick envelope on the table and slid it toward her. "You had rights," I said. "Then you filmed an assault and extortion and posted it online." The envelope had Carter, Finch & Lowe's logo crossed out with a red slash. Beside it, embossed in silver, was Daniel Cho's firm. "Formal notice of intent to sue," I said. "Criminal fraud, coercion, misappropriation of trust funds, theft. I suggest you read the appendix. It includes a frame-by-frame breakdown of your daughter's video with timestamps, location metadata, and a very clear view of your face." The bathroom door opened. Chloe emerged, hoodie hanging off one shoulder, eyes swollen. Her phone buzzed in her hand with a new notification. "Account frozen. C Bank." She looked at me, then the envelope, then her mother. Panic flickered. "Nora," she said, rushing over, voice small, If you go easy on me, I'll give you screenshots. Texts between Mom and some guy from Black Summit, messages about setting you up. I kept them, for leverage." "You recorded your own mother?" I asked. "I don't want to go to prison," she said, tearful. "I just held the phone. I didn't know." "Keep your screenshots," I said. "My lawyers will subpoena them. You'll tell the truth under oath, or you'll perjure yourself on camera. Either way, you'll finally be honest." I picked up my bag, the box with my mother's ring inside, and walked to the door. "Enjoy the apartment," I said over my shoulder, "while you still have it." Downstairs in the Bentley, Marcus handed me a leather folder. "We acquired 70% of Hart Urban's debt from 2 regional banks this morning," he said. "Vale subsidiary now stands as Jason Hart's primary creditor." I signed the foreclosure notice at the bottom. "Send it," I said. "Lock the doors in 24 hours if Jason doesn't pay." Crushing someone like Jason doesn't happen with one dramatic gesture. It happens in layers. First, the padlocks. His employees found the doors locked with a notice, temporarily sealed by order of creditor committee. Then the contracts. 2 mid-sized logistics firms canceled their consulting agreements with Jason's company, citing ethical concerns. Both happened to be Quiet Vale affiliates. Then, the money. We flagged transactions from his accounts as suspicious. Banks froze them pending investigation. Credit cards declined. First, there was Valeria Cruz. His mistress was a fitness influencer with 500,000 followers. She was shown documents of financial fraud in the influencer economy. Her sponsor had given her $50,000, and her bank account only showed $5,000. Jason had told her the rest was going into an investment fund for their house in Cabo. In truth, over 18 months, $300,000 was put into Jason's firm. The fund did not exist. Her anger came in disbelief and rage as she realized he had stolen her future. Elaine Marsh, who owned a high-end furniture boutique just 1 city over in Madison. Jason had connected her to Black Summit Capital that fronted as a growth fund. She had invested $2 million so she could expand her business. She knew the interest was steep, but thought safe. She received an email from Jason's server. His message to a Solace Dynamics contact was plain. "She's over-leveraged. Raise her supply costs 15% and she'll default. The IP alone is worth $5 million. She was devastated. Amber Lee, a grad student in urban planning, lived in Minneapolis. Jason had told her about his wife, complete with all the lies. She received footage without the filters, cuts, and manipulations to the files. She received the truth about why she was important to him. For 2 years, she wrote his case studies and grant proposals. Nora Vale brought them all together, 3 women with nothing in common except lies formed Jason Hart. All 3 were united to bring him down. Behind the scenes, Daniel filed motions to nullify my coerced divorce. Marcus moved to acquire the remainder of Hart Urban's debt. Edward leaned on old favors. When Jason's phone rang now, it wasn't investors. It was banks calling in loans, clients canceling contracts, and eventually, the DA's office. Jason was arrested, and with his cooperation and proof of corruption, arrests were made in sweeping, brutal waves. Solace Dynamics crumbled. Black Summit collapsed. Carter, Finch & Lowe imploded. And Vale? We didn't pretend innocence. We admitted complicity. We exposed ourselves to prevent falling with them. The world likes a confession almost as much as it likes a villain. We gave them both. One stray ledger in an old file room changed everything again. Solace's origins traced back to seed investment number 0045, my grandfather's investment, Jason's father's company, two families bound by money long before marriage, two systems entangled. Burn it all, I told my grandfather, or I walk. He laughed, then agreed. Vale restructured. We built Harbor Trust, a fund run not solely by wealthy gatekeepers but survivors, regulators, and people who understood the long shadows of financial abuse. For the first time, Vale wasn't a fortress, it was a weapon. Jason eventually accepted a plea deal. The day the judge read his sentence, I was at Harbor House, pouring bad coffee into mismatched mugs. A woman beside me asked, "Isn't that your ex?" On the tiny TV, Jason stood pale and shaking. "That's him," I said. "You're not watching?" "I don't need to." She studied me. "How'd you get out?" I told her the truth. I stopped believing I deserved it, and I stopped doing it alone. Chicago stayed cold for a long time, but Harbor House was warm. The work ahead was long, messy, human. I wasn't just reclaiming my own life, I was dismantling the systems that treated women like me, and Elaine, like acceptable collateral damage. My grandfather said I sounded like my mother. Maybe that was the truest victory of all. I wrapped my hands around a cheap plastic mug and let the heat move into me, slowly, steadily. The freezing point had passed. Now came the thaw, and the rebuilding. Not as a Vale, not as Jason's ex-wife, just as Nora.